If you search for the best Linux distro on YouTube or any other community forums, you'll see these insanely clean and beautiful setups. Workflow that looks like a movie. You research more and come across beginner guides telling you to install Ubuntu or even Arch. You flash a USB drive, boot it up, and bam, it looks nothing like the distro you saw on YouTube or the screenshot a guy posted on Reddit. You think maybe you chose the wrong distro. You wipe your drive and install Fedora. Still doesn't look right. Then you try Mint and welcome to distro hopping. Linux users spend so much time arguing which distro is best that beginners completely misunderstand how Linux actually works. If you want to build a setup that actually feels yours, you have to understand the difference between the engine running your computer and the steering wheel you use to drive it. Let's clear this up. What you hear as the Linux distribution or distro is the engine. It is strictly the backend. When you choose between Debian, Arch, Fedora, or NixOS, you're really making a choice about two things: how you get your software and how fresh that software is. If you use something Debian-based like Mint or Ubuntu, you get stability. The packages are older, heavily tested, and your system will basically never crash. It's the ultimate just works daily driver. But if you are a developer, a gamer, or someone who needs the absolute latest updates the second they drop, you look at a rolling release like Arch. Here you have access to basically most of the softwares with one command. But the trade-off is you have to know how to fix things when an update randomly breaks your audio drivers. And then there's the current meta everyone is talking about, NixOS. NixOS handles packages entirely differently. It isolates your software. So if you need to run heavy productivity apps, specific dev environments, and custom scripts all at the same time, Nix prevents them from ever conflicting with each other. If an update breaks your system, you reboot into the exact configuration from yesterday anyways. The distro does not dictate how your screen looks. That is your desktop environment. Instead of treating Linux as one locked-in system like Windows, you have to realize it's split into two completely separate layers. Your distro handles all the invisible background work. It fetches your updates, runs your services, and manages your files. But the desktop environment is the actual visual layer you interact with every single day. It's your taskbar, your app menus, your keyboard shortcuts, and your window animations. Because these two layers are completely unlinked, you can run the exact same Arch Linux backend on two different computers, but give them completely different visual skins. If you want a traditional, Windows-style layout that you can customize heavily with zero coding, you use KDE Plasma. If you want a clean, trackpad-friendly, Mac OS-style workflow that forces you to focus, you use GNOME. And if you want those crazy keyboard-driven layouts you see on Reddit, we are not talking about desktop environment anymore. This is a whole another rabbit hole of Linux. They are called tiling window managers like Hyperland or i3. Window managers drop the heavy menus and icons to give you raw speed and minimal RAM usage, but you have to configure literally everything in text files. So, how do you stop distro hopping and actually pick the right combination? Let's be real and look at what you actually need. User 1, the Windows switcher. You just want out of the Windows ecosystem. You don't want to learn terminal commands, you just want to play your Steam games and browse the web without Microsoft tracking you. You can go with Linux Mint with the Cinnamon DE or Fedora with KDE Plasma. User 2, the productivity powerhouse. You code, you edit video, and you need a system that cannot fail, but you also want deep control over your workflow. The learning curve for Nix configuration is steep, but the package isolation means your productivity software will never nuke your system dependencies. User 3, the tinkerer. You want to race your desktop, you want complete control over every pixel, you want access to the AUR, and you don't mind fixing a config file if things go wrong. You go with Arch Linux or CachyOS paired with Hyperland. You build it from the ground up, and when it works, it is the fastest, most satisfying computing experience on the planet, or you can simply get a shell to work with them. The beauty of Linux isn't that there is one perfect OS that beats Windows. It's that you finally get to choose exactly what your computer does, both in the backend and on the screen. Don't let gatekeepers tell you that you have to use a terminal-only setup to be a real Linux user, and don't feel bad if you try a window manager and decide you just prefer normal floating windows. Figure out what engine you want running your packages, pick the interface that matches your brain, and start building.